Well, joining us now from his constituency of High Wycombe is the Conservative MP and Chair of the European Research Group, Steve Baker. Mr Baker, where do you think things go from here?
Well, where we go from here is a deepening political crisis, which is what this Supreme Court judgment has given us, and we ought to have a general election. I mean, I've listened to some real nonsense from opposition politicians talking about Boris and his attitude to democracy. Well, they're the ones treating democracy with contempt. They should have voted for a general election, which Boris Johnson gave them the opportunity to do, and that's where we should be headed.
Well, they've made a clear statement that they think avoiding a no-deal Brexit, which I know would be OK with you, is the priority. That's why they've delayed the election. And if you're talking about respect for democracy, we just had the Prime Minister effectively saying the Supreme Court got it wrong and that a act passed by Parliament doesn't apply. That might be, in the view of some, not respecting democracy.
Well, I'll just pick you up on three things you've said which are wrong, Adam, now that you've given me the opportunity. First, many of us are at work. We're not returning to work. I'm here in my constituency office. I'll be meeting the public tomorrow, and I've had to cancel meetings tomorrow. So we are at work. The Prime Minister's been very, very clear that he's going to be complying with the law. And what we need to do here is make sure that we move forward in a way which delivers our exit from the European, from the European Union. That's what the public voted for. And I think what we're seeing today with Remain campaigners celebrating with this judgment is that they want to stop the result of a legitimate democratic choice which the public took. And that's what we need to do, is get on with it and deliver our exit.
But Mr Johnson did lie to the public, didn't he? And that's what the Supreme Court have decided, because he said prorogation was about getting on with the agenda, and 11 Supreme Court justices have decided that his motivation was to obstruct Parliament over Brexit.
Well, Adam, for the second time in this interview, I object to the tone you're taking, because a moment ago you said I'd be fine with no deal. Actually, I've personally seen to it that we've set out how to reach a set of agreements of the character the EU offered. And now you're trying to get me to suggest the Prime Minister's lied. I don't think that's actually in this judgment. I will read it scrupulously carefully, but I don't think that's the position that we are in. This prorogation extended over the period of the conference recess. People will know that the conferences are in progress. The Conservative conference is next week. Excuse me. We do actually need to have that conference, not least because we need to go into a general election. And that election needs to be based upon a platform which enjoys the consent of Conservative members and Conservative voters, Leave voters, so that we can get the majority we so clearly need to stand our constitution back on its feet and leave the European Union. Because let's not forget, in the midst of everything that is happening, it is quite unconstitutional for Parliament to take control of its own business. The way things work in this country is the public get the government they voted for, and that means the government controls the business of the House of Commons. And what we're seeing with the House of Commons breaking standing orders to take control of the legislative programme, to deliver an unconstitutional law by unconstitutional means, that is quite wrong, and we can only set it right by having a general election.
Well, it's not up to me, it's up to the Supreme Court and Parliament. But we've just heard that the number 10 is saying the Prime Minister will not resign. Do you think that's the right decision?
Of course it's right that he should not resign. He is standing up for a legitimate democratic decision which the public made. He's standing up for a manifesto on which he and I stood for election. And of course he ought not to resign. What we should do is see parliamentarians behave like democrats, accept the result of the referendum, and stop spoiling our negotiating position.
Just one final question. Should he consider a prorogation, a legal prorogation, this side of the Brexit deadline? Is that still on the cards?
Certainly, yes. And we should certainly have our Conservative conference next week. That is the right and proper thing to do. And I shall certainly support him if he chooses to lawfully prorogue Parliament for 4 to 6 days to ensure that we have our conference. It's only right that we should, particularly at this time.
OK, we shall see what happens. Thank you very much indeed for making your position clear, Steve Baker there. Just to